There are a lot of ways in which security awareness or human risk management program can be automated. In this session, we ask the question, how much automation is appropriate for your security awareness program? Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the live Cybersecurity Awareness Forum, the best part of your security week. Brought to you by ClickArmor, the first interactive security awareness training, assessment, and engagement platform. This is session 40. Happy 40th, Wednesday, March 20th, 2024, and we are talking about how much automation is appropriate for your security awareness program. I'm Ryan from ClickArmor, and I'm joined by an amazing panel who I'll introduce momentarily. And for those of you who haven't attended before, just a few housekeeping details before we start. We like to have attendees type into the chat where they're joining us from. Thank you for those who have done so already. It's great to see international participation. And while you're doing that, I just wanted to remind everyone that this session is brought to you by ClickArmor. Also, as the session unfolds, please use the chat for any questions you have for the panel or resources you'd like to share. Networking opportunities abound. So, joining us today on the panel, we have Fleetus, one of our regulars. Fleetus is a seasoned IT and security professional, currently a security operations manager. Beyond his expertise, he finds immense joy in sharing his passion for cybersecurity with others. Welcome back, Fleetus, and I challenge everyone to try and figure out where Fleetus is calling from today. And joining Fleetus, we've got Scott. Scott is the CEO and founder of ClickArmor. You may know Scott from previously being the host of the Cybersecurity Awareness Forum and that security awareness guy. And so thank you for joining us on the panel today, Scott.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Well, without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and jump into our presentation today. So first and foremost, right off the top, let's review what do we do with these recordings. Well, we'll post the full session on YouTube within 3 days, so you can always check that out and review previous episodes. We extract each session's full transcript and create a blog post with key discussions. We also distill content every quarter into an industry report. And you can also comment on the session on the CSAF website, which we just shared. So grab links from those QR codes or in the chat for the forum, and please follow along and be a part of our community, please. And so let's talk about automation. So what's the need for automation? Just a couple stats here to kind of set the stage and see where we're at. But one that jumps out to me. We've got 75% of security leaders say cybersecurity automation is important, and that's gone up from last year and probably up from year over year. Another one, 80% of security pros expect to increase their cybersecurity automation investments. Okay, so again, we're trending up and we're trending, forward. And then we look at the when you actually put automation in place, you've got 70% of companies, you get a 70% reduction in security incidents, by companies that are using and implementing these forms of automation. So we see that it works, we see that it's growing, and we see that we're investing in it. So all those kind of signs led us to this kind of conversation because we'd love to hear the input from everyone in the community. So automation, what does it look like in security awareness training? It can look like a ton of different things. We've just extracted a few of the keys, and where we think it's kind of important. But that's automated deployment of learning. So staying up to date with human-centric threats. Automated training can ensure that employees receive timely and relevant content. So it's always up to date. It's always being brought to their level. And then always on security awareness. So again, with having an automated program that is constantly delivering, this approach can integrate security awareness into the company culture. So again, rather than just being a one-off event or even just a monthly event, this becomes part of the day-to-day, the pop-ups, the reminders, the little security tips, the awareness training, all these, communications and these different things that happen, when it becomes an automated flow, all of a sudden it's part of the day-to-day and it's no longer something that, has to be added on or even looked at in, sort of an extra light. And then we also look at targeted training. Automation can bring us a lot of targeted approaches. Each user can receive customized content based on their specific need or role. So again, we're not just giving blanketed training to the masses. We're trying to determine who needs what and where. And with initial assessments and continuous reinforcement, an automated security program can identify knowledge gaps, deliver relevant training, and address vulnerabilities in real time. Again, we're not just kind of waiting for things to unfold, learning about them. Like, let's use all these tools, let's use AI and find the best ways to keep this, fresh and in front of people. The more they're aware about something, the more they can be prepared for that next threat. And then we look at reminders and reporting. So from automation, you can have timely reminders for training sessions. We were just talking about that before we kicked off when reminders go wrong. But these reminders, when done right, can go via email, Slack, Teams, all the different channels that we have set up in the corporate, environment now, just to keep people aware that this training is available and potentially, needs to get done. And then automated reporting generates consistent and accurate data. So this is huge. There's a lot of in awareness and even in phishing simulations and a lot of different kind of activities. There's not much data. There's yes or no's, or there's click rate or not, but there isn't a large track of data. And the more we automate processes, and the more we dive into setting up these programs, we can learn more about users, how they learn, when they learn, a lot of different things that could go into it, and we could build better programs. And then we've obviously, though, whenever you have benefits, you're going to have risks, and this is a part that Scott's been talking about on LinkedIn. I just put the screenshot in here, and actually, I'm just going to hand this one over to Scott for the comment on how he sees risks in these automated environments.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. This is based on my experience. I think I've been teaching security awareness for 15 years now, and I started doing phishing simulations 6, 7 years ago, and noticed something as I started to do it. You can automate, first of all, delivery of phishing simulation tests has to be automated. I used to do it actually manually, do like 100 or 200 people with manual emails. But of course, back in 2012 or so, the tools became much more powerful. So you don't need to worry about that. That's almost a given part of the automation of security awareness now, is just having those messages sent out. But when you think about it, some of the there are many solutions that provide what we call automated selection and delivery of a simulation program, which means technically you don't have to do anything. You just set it up and it will pick them and send out messages on a schedule that you want from a gallery or an inventory of messages. But what I found is that can cause a few problems. So things like having security appliances that trigger quarantines on the suspicious message content that's coming in. So that, we'll talk a little bit about how you address some of these things, but having proper filtering and testing is really important for those. Then having the system automatically say, okay, well, somebody clicked on one of those messages, I'm going to put them in a group, we'll call it clickers, and those people are going to get automatically assigned some remedial training. That can go wrong too, because of the third item here, which is appliances that actually detonate the links or attachments after somebody's reported it. So people have done the right thing with one of the phishing simulation messages that they've received and reported it, but the appliances are actually saying, well, what is this thing somebody reported? Is it really dangerous? And then they go and they follow that link. So that can actually cause the appearance of somebody both clicking and reporting at the same time, which will confuse everybody. But the real problem here is that people get falsely accused of of clicking messages when they shouldn't have. And it all sort of turns back to the fact that we've automated this process so much, and we didn't spend enough time trying to make sure that all of those messages that are queued up or that are going to get sent out are actually not going to cause either technical problems or people having backlash. So that's sort of the insight that I wanted to bring on the risk side of automation for phishing simulations, especially.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll touch on some of these, risks and aspects, as we kind of unfold the discussion as well. Because I'd love to hear kind of, Fleetus's experience and thoughts around that as well. As we always do, we've got a series of polls. So we're going to launch the first of 3 polls today. We'd love to hear your feedback there. If you have any extra additional comments, please drop them in the chat. While that poll is launching, I just want to kind of quickly review where everyone's joining us from today. Thank you if you've dropped, that information. We've got Fleeta saying hello from Earth. Fantastically, at least is that low Earth, like high Earth orbit? Where are we at right now? We're somewhere in between. Okay, cool. We've got Denver, a little bit more specific. Thank you, Chelsea. I bet you I could ask Chelsea where Fleetus is. And then I've got myself and Romero. We've got Scott from Ottawa. Hello to Calgary. Another Alberta, Istanbul, Turkey. Again, thank you for joining us. Thornton, Colorado. That's the first time I've ever heard in Thornton, Colorado. If anyone else is in there, you want to drop where you're from. Oh, Charlotte, North Carolina. Thank you, Thomas, dropping that one in there late. But yeah, it's great to have people joining us from all over the place, internationally as well, different time zones. We really appreciate it. So thank you again for being here. So I'm just going to let that poll wrap up in the back there, and we're just going to move into our kind of first talking point of the day. And so I'll stop sharing after I kind of ask this question to the panel here. What activities in a security awareness program are easiest and the most valuable to automate? So what's, I guess, the low hanging fruit and the best ROI? And again, I'd love to hear any comments from the chat. I can bring them to the panel as well.
Yeah, Fleetus, do you want to go first?
Sure. So we've talked about already, if you take the proper precautions, you can schedule out all of your phishing simulations, as long as you work with the respective email security components to say, this is going to be the sending IP, this is going to be my bait link, and getting those allow listed inside of your security controls, and then working with your firewall or networking team, whoever's handling the edge, to make sure when you click on them that they actually still go to the landing pages. Another thing, fairly simple to do today, is webhooks. You could set up content and schedule it to be dropped. For some of you who follow me, I have a food for thought question. I do not send those at 5 a.m. Eastern every day. Those are automated to come out at 5 a.m. Eastern time every day that I stage in preparation for the week. So you can do that on platforms such as that, of putting scheduled tasks in place or webhooks. And then other things is just having RSS feeds. Yes, I know those are dying, but you could set and monitor those digest that you care about. So if Bleeping Computer has been valuable to you, get an alert when Bleeping Computer publishes something. Or if you want a CISA or ISACA, like if you want to subscribe to ISACA and you want certain people, that's that you put them in a channel or a feed or an email where they get timely updates. So we think awareness as just what we're teaching and training. Awareness could just be current news. Like, you got to think past just what's going on, because it's imperative for us as the security leader, from my point of view, to know about things before they hit the news. So when my C levels ask me, I've already seen it from an intel sharing platform that I've subscribed to, or a news feed that's usually bleeding edge and will release it the night before or the morning of, before it hits mainstream news such as CNN, Fox, etc., where your C levels are likely to see it. Or if they still read the paper, the local Wall Street Journal or another Boston Globe that may come out that they're seeing these risks. So finding ways to just subscribe. I mean, it's my joke today. That was my best phishing simulation, was to look for unsubscribe in emails. Like, that's still a way to get data. Subscribe to things. Get your user to subscribe to an internal newsletter, so you don't have to email it. They can just click on the link, or they know to go look on Mondays at 9 a.m. You're going to release a newsletter. That's automated released. It's scheduled. It's timely.
Yeah, I think that's key. Some of the easy ones, just bring information to people and help them then link to all the training you're doing and those scenarios you're showing them. Then show them those news articles that link that all together, so they understand their role and their part of in security. Scott, do you have some thoughts on how we could automate?
Yeah, I think Fleetus did a good job covering the automation areas around phishing simulations, and especially for research and getting those subscription data. I'd like to just sort of highlight again the notifications and reminders. I think it really helps keep things on track, because a lot of times security awareness managers are busy, right? And your top of mind isn't always that people, whether they've taken training or finished or whatever. And so if you can schedule reminders that can happen regularly and reliably, it really takes a load off the security awareness manager's mind, just to make sure that those things are taken care of and they're done in a timely manner. It keeps the momentum going of the program. And also, even if you can schedule courses, if you have tools for scheduling the release of courses, turning them on and turning them off, you could, potentially just set up an entire year's worth of training that you don't have to be worried again about scheduling your time. I need to block off an hour to go and make sure that this course is ready to launch. If you can schedule that stuff ahead of time, then that is really valuable for awareness managers.
Yeah, it's a great point, but also, then I think kind of expanding that a little bit, then we think about all the organizations that aren't fortunate to have awareness managers. These are now
Yeah.
it's think about all the organizations out there that they have to get training done one way or another. They need, but and they have someone responsible for that. That could be HR, that could be someone in privacy or legal even, right? There's all kinds of different departments, as we've kind of explored before, that could be responsible for it. So I think having a system in place where automation can kind of take over really does alleviate a lot of the responsibilities of that day-to-day management of an awareness platform, where again, you can let the platform do the rollout and the communication, and you can just simply optimize it and kind of stand back and ingest that data, ingest the reports, and monitor your users. But you don't have to be the one inventing the wheel. You're just the one rolling that wheel down the hill nice and quick. That's kind of a huge advantage with notifications and reminders.
So another thing too, I didn't mention, but I think I've talked about other talks, and some of the people on the call have heard me speak about this. Working with your IT team, so when they do patch management, that they can roll out lock screens or desktop backgrounds. So if you're a Microsoft shop, you can push those through global policy. If you're a Mac shop, through Jamps, Kanji, or other MDMs, but just pushing out stuff that's automated. Like you say, hey, for Q1, I want this lock screen. For Q2, I want this one. And you've staged them and they're ready to go. And as their cadence of their monthly, weekly patching, they add that GPO or that MDM push to apply it. Yes, there needs to be some training, you need to be aware, because I think I've shared on a couple other calls. We did this at a previous company and we put up a shark, and we had people who had phobias of shark. HR got a call,
Ooh,
but it was still programmatically done. You didn't have to
yes.
manually tell a user to download this PNG or JPEG and apply it to their desktop or to their lock screen. You can programmatically stage those and plan those, and have time for HR, legal, and other stuff to review the verbiage, or if you're using real people, is it okay? Or do you have to use animation? Like, you have that opportunity.
But it's kind of a good point. Like, take your automation beyond just your department. See how you could flow into the automation of other departments, right? I think we've talked about this before with, getting involved in the HR newsletter, right? And having just a security moment in that HR newsletter. If you, again, automate that and plan that process, you get, maybe 12 exposure points throughout the year that you would not normally have gotten. And I think finding more and more ways to have an ongoing automated process gets those touch points. And it's kind of like marketing, right? Like, we are the ultimate, like, we're kind of fighting for market share, which is people's attention. And we need to have more impressions in front of people about security awareness than the people in HR talking about the fire drill, because we need to accomplish our goal and our job. So
Yeah,
and
and to
go ahead.
that piece too, just thinking, because we're kind of doing it here, we're not automating it for this call, but polls are powerful. So if you've got people who are in virtual meetings and hey, security sends out, or awareness sends out a poll that they can ingest in, that you can allow them to pull in automatically, that they just select, kind of like your virtual backdrops. Like, those are other things I didn't even talk about, like the lock screen. Like, you're seeing a click armor right now. That can be done. It's automatically applied. It's pushed to every user in your environment. They can just choose it. Same with polls. Say, open with a security moment. Here's the poll I want you to ask. Feed that data back, or you can scrub it yourself and pull it back. And then that can now be added to the security newsletter, the HR newsletter, the C levels, like fireside chat, if they have one, or if they do a video blog, they can take the data points from all the meetings and apply it, because you've now given a poll that can be selected inside of Zoom, that your IT team can set up for you, or Teams that can be deployed at an all hands meeting or a staff meeting.
Yeah, awesome examples. Scott, any more comments before we jump into our second poll question?
No, I think, well, actually, you did mention reports, but reporting is really
Mhm.
important, for getting the data out to people and helping understand not only executives, but people to understand where they are standing in terms of their own knowledge. So whether it's reporting live or just having their statuses on on a platform, for example, that they can refer to. So that's really useful. Yeah, so let's move on.
Yeah, perfect. Well, here's the speaking of polls off of Fleetus, we'll slide into the second poll. So does your organization use automation for any of the following activities? So we should be able to select a couple there, and if they're applicable, and see. And while we do that, just want to check over to the chat. We've got some comments coming in through there. We said, Thomas said, when we're talking about what can we automate, he said responses, like actual gamified learning and group notifications. So those are all things that he sees the opportunity, and that's, those are all great, right? And that literally lets the program do the work for you, where then you can focus on the results. as Scott mentioned, and you can fine tune your program from there. And again, it's, automation doesn't mean it does everything for you, but automation will do a lot of the redundant and the repetitive tasks for you. What that should free you up to do is then be able to analyze that data and optimize your automated tool, right? It's we always say set it and forget it, but there's always that set it and continuously fine tune it so it always gets better option as well. And then that's the pendulum, right? Where some awareness managers, if organizations are lucky to have those folks, they could be in there every day fine tuning their automated system, right? And then the pendulum will swing to the other organizations who literally will go in and set up a program, and then 364 days later go in to reset up that new program. And both have been successful and both have trained, but we obviously know we'll probably get different results from those two groups. So it's interesting to see then where automation is being used right now in organizations out there, because it is a growing trend.
Yeah, we're going to review the results of the polls in a little while. I apologize. I'm not sure if the poll is showing up as a multiple choice where you can select multiple of the options there. I meant to do that. If it's only one thing that you can select, then just pick the one that you think is most valuable or most important.
It is multi-choice. Thank you,
Very
Stephen, for
good.
confirming. Yes,
Excellent.
we can't see what you see as the polls. We can just deploy them. So perfect. We'll as Scott mentioned, we can review those poll questions later in the answers. But we will slide into our next question for the panelists, and that's what activities in a security awareness program face challenges when it comes to automation?
Yeah, do you want to go ahead, Felitus?
I mean, we've hit it, but I'll hit it again. You can't set and forget your phishing simulations. I've had detailed conversations both with Ryan and Scott about this, as well as on the operations side, where I have email security controls and network security controls as the security operations person. They require work from my engineers to allow you to send those emails and to click on those emails and to interact with those emails, because for all intents and purposes, phishing is not realistic when it comes to the real world, because we are allowing these emails in. These emails would never get in because of the triggers that are in them that are meant for the employee. So be cautious about automating those, as we talked about. The other one is, I joked before we went live, be careful what time of day you send messages. Pay attention to time zones, to geolocations, and if you are sending stuff out, make sure it's appropriate for the region you're sending. So have someone vet if you're going to send something to a European company or a South America or an Asia or Africa, because it may not hit as well. And if your automation is going global, if you're a global company, you want to make sure that you've set up the right time zones and the right media, images, etc. when you push that, because it can't be let's just globally push this to everyone at 5 a.m. Eastern, knowing that it will roll out and it'll be there when they log in. It may not be so.
Yeah, and I mean, people work different days of the week around the world. I mean, there's a lot to consider when you're looking at a global kind of platform as well, but even just at a local level, I think notifications would probably be one of the first things I would look at to make sure, because that's something that I think you can kind of go two ways on, right? Utilizing notifications will work, but too many notifications can give fatigue and can get ignored and can drive users away from your platform, right? Like we all know this from our apps on our phones. Like we've all installed apps that have a varying level of notifications, and there's been times where it's like, sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I got another notification or that was helpful. But then there's some apps where I go into the settings and I just turn off notifications because I can't even deal with the level of annoyance. So that being said, Scott, what are your thoughts on where we're at?
Scott
go ahead.
Related to what Scott mentioned earlier. It's great to automate reporting, but make sure that the reporting has been vetted, that when you send out the report, that it is clean enough. And when I say clean enough, it's clean enough that if it gets passed on, if it gets forwarded, if it gets emailed, it's not going to cause a fire drill. Can't tell you how many times we send an automated report out that someone thought it had been anonymized, had been cleaned up, and it gets forwarded on. All of a sudden, we're in the middle of a call trying to figure out why this data is this, why this report looks like that. So it's okay to automate your reporting, but put parameters around that this is a draft, this is in progress, watermark these things so that when you do send the final report, they know it's the final and they can ask questions. Because leaders, myself included, can get scared real easily when a report hits my desk and I think it's been sanitized or if it's been scrubbed or it's real data.
Yeah, I totally agree, Fleetus, on that, because I've seen cases where, people take for granted that the data coming out of the system is real or is valid, and without vetting it to see if it makes sense, and looking at it from an executive's point of view, say, what are they going to think if they see this, maybe this outlier? What is that going to mean? How are you going to explain it, right? And so just passing on the automated reports in some cases, maybe putting yourself a little bit at risk in terms of credibility over the long term. So that's a really good point. I was also going to bring up the idea of there's a lot of, certainly talk of AI and automation in terms of how you categorize people in terms of their need for training and scheduling them automatically for particular kinds of training. And, technically that's getting easier to do. What I wanted people to think about is from an end user or an employee point of view, maybe your awareness training system is scheduling people, but what about the other corporate systems that are, loading people down with other training? And the idea of leveling off the training so that it's not overwhelming people at any given time, I think is really important. So it's, again, as Fleeta says, collaborating with different groups in the organization if you're going to do this.
Yeah, at what point does the automation overlap, and do departments talk to each other? And yeah, to Fleeta's point, if you're super mindful of your notifications and when they go out, then yeah, is the communications team then overseeing all communications to make sure that you're not kind of conflicting with another, scheduled event because your message could get lost in translation, right? There's a lot to consider again when you're going into like an automated environment. That it'll work, but that fine tuning and planning, I think, stage is probably the most important that could get overlooked.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Well, that being said, I think I'm going to launch us into our third and final poll question, which is, what aspect of security awareness automation do you find to be the most challenging to deal with? And again, if anyone has any, stories or references or anything above and beyond they'd like to share in the chat, we'd love to have that as well. And thank you for anyone who's joined us along the journey today. We've had a few new people jump in.
Yeah. Excellent. So yeah, do you want to move to the open question, and then
perfect. And then the next question we'll talk about is, how should security awareness managers decide on priorities for automating key activities? So again, we don't have unlimited time, we don't have unlimited budgets. So if you're going to sit down and prioritize your year out, where would you start and why?
Scott, you take this first since I've gone the last two.
Yeah, no worries. So the way I would look at it is looking at what are your biggest challenges, in terms of your program. As Ryan said, some organizations have the luxury of having a dedicated security awareness manager or some staff, but others don't have a dedicated person. And so you can look at what are the biggest things that you're really hitting in terms of challenges. Is it an employee engagement, getting them to actually pay attention to the content? Is it just getting them started? Having somebody, go out and remind them all the time. You might want to have some automation there that just keeps pinging people if they haven't come onto, the platform. But then there's also, the ability to keep reminding people if they haven't finished, and then automating the reporting itself, just at least getting the data out for management to review and say, how many of my people have not completed. We want to try and keep the momentum going. So it might be any one of those areas, but I think from a management point of view, looking at where are your biggest challenges to start with and seeing what you can automate to start with in each of those areas. Fleetus?
So I want to say, as we kind of talked about, you may not want to automate certain tasks for 3, 6, 9, 12 months of an organization, so you get the feel of what is comms doing, what is HR doing, what is IT doing, so that you can tag along. Because we've already talked about it. If I am very timely and I'm very concise with what I send, I may be contradicting and not be aware of it, because we joke we don't see the polls right now. We may not see every comm that goes to our end user, so we may not know if I'm conflicting with my automation with what HR is telling, if we haven't talked to HR, or what comms is saying, or email. Some companies are not email first. So if you're only automating emails, you may be missing half your audience. So it may be fine to do like let's go visit my org and say, hey, how would you like to be communicated to? Do you want a Yammer page? Do you want a Teams notification? Do you want me to just put everything in Confluence and send you links? Do you want Slack messages? Find out how it works, and then you can automate those for the line of businesses who want to be fed that way. Because some people may be very outgoing and want memes. They want stuff to come across that way.
Mhm.
They want to be trained via slang just to keep humor in the workforce. Where you may have a very conservative line of business who's very like black and white, and they don't want automation that's got a meme or a Giphy or slang. They want legal terms. They
Mhm.
want active, not passive tones. So you got to be careful of how quickly you automate things until you know your environment. If they're conservative or outgoing, do they want to see it in an email, or do they want to see it in Teams or Slack or Yammer or another platform that they can subscribe to and get notifications from?
Yeah, no, it's a super valid point. You have to know your audience is kind of right. And for our audiences, some automation will be perfect and some it will not. There may even be subsets of your group that automation doesn't apply to. You could have, a group of, employees in a certain department or at a certain level that you don't want automation involved in, that you do need to do a little bit more hand holding of notifications or, of follow-ups and of workflow, because again, you have to make sure that you're getting everyone collectively to your goal. And I don't believe that there's one cookie cutter method that will get everyone in an organization to the same goal through a security awareness program. I think that's where, there's a lot of different levels involved, and automation is just one of them, but optimization I still think is what I go back to. And it's, if you're going to automate something, you need to understand what you're getting from that and how you can make it better for the end user. And so, where would the priorities be? I would agree with Scott. It would be kind of based on your current needs of the organization and your current risk level. Are we starting from basics? Do we simply need to automate a process to get as much learning in front of people as quickly as possible, or are we well beyond that and we just need to set up a drip automated drip phishing campaign to reinforce and retest some of those skills? And so again, it's you don't just blast it out. You really got to kind of sit down and plan it out if you have that ability. But a lot of companies still don't have that ability, and that's where there's organizations like ClickArmor and in the ecosystem to be able to provide this level of support and training and automation.
So I will add one more thing, because I know that at least one of the people in this audience, or at least I know what one of their companies is doing, just spoke with one of the directors, is with the evolution of large language models moving internal, you may be able to use the IT's large language model to put policies and procedures into it and allow your users to ask it questions via a chat bot, a Slack bot, or something of that nature, so that they can get real-time information without having to go to the help desk or to the security awareness manager. If you can
Mhm.
load in these procedures, policies, and information that you want them to digest, they can ask it questions. Yes, you have to train it. Yes, you have to spend some time, but some of these larger organizations are starting to do that. They're starting to say, let's let our knowledge base be learned by these AI platforms to get large language models and to build the natural processing language engines. That's where automation is moving to. That's going to help your help desk. It's going to help your security awareness program. It's going to help your SOC. It's going to help all of these organizations. And that's how automation is going to help security awareness, is because all of these teams are now going to use this technology either on a public or private cloud or internal to do
Mhm.
this the next, I'll predict it now, the next 12 to 36 months. You'll see
Yeah.
more organizations who are using that to get information versus push. They're going to let the user pull it, and then they're going to audit how often the users are pulling information from these
You've
bots and
got
these.
my brain spinning with ideas. I mean, if this is a working session, Fleetus, man, I would have the whiteboard out right now and I would be drawing out exactly what I envisioned. But that, no, it is a very good point. And I think, we're just on this cusp of automation, I think, taking a big turn. And it'll be very interesting to see a year from now what we're talking about with automation when it comes to security in general in security awareness, because to your point, like once companies do have these AI bots that, you know, can, if I just type what's my password policy, right? You know, it tells me, and now I know, right? Before I wouldn't have gone through the PDF and or gone through the website and dug it up and stuff, and I would have been embarrassed to ask someone, right? But now I know something, and I have an ability to learn, and you know that just kind of changes the way people do things. And also with AI, I mean, curating of courses. I mean, we're going to be at a point where once a user's you know, risk is identified, a course will be able, you know, to be created custom for that user based on their experiences in real time. You know, those are the things that we're looking at in the future, where that, you know, that level of customization can be there. It's exciting, but it's also scary because, again, more automation brings more issues and problems, and you know, then you have to really, again, you have to pay attention to what you're automating. Is it needed to be automated, or is it just, you know, out of kind of frivolous reasons that we're automating these things? Did we have any more comments before we kind of review our poll questions? I think might be a good time.
Let's go
Scott?
ahead and have a look at the polls. So I'm just
Perfect.
going to share my screen if I can find it and not share the wrong things as usual.
Passwords.txt, here it comes.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
it's the
there we are.
polls.
Yeah. So yeah, the first question was, what's the main benefit of automating security awareness training from your point of view? And interestingly, I think majority of people found ensuring consistent and timely delivery of content is important. I think that really is key, especially it does help save managers' times. But a lot of the other aspects of automation are also seen as being valuable as well. Question number two, does your organization use automation for any of the following activities? And scheduling of notifications and reminders is 70% of the organizations. So that's really useful to know too. I think that is kind of maybe the easiest way that people are seeing value from automation. Certainly there's going to be more value, as we talked about just a moment ago, from other kinds of automation. But I think these are sort of the low-hanging fruit. And then what aspects do you find most challenging? Interesting sort of distribution here. You know, the biggest ones are too much information for employees and a lack of opportunity to customize content. Yeah, so I mean, the faster you're getting things to be sent out, the less time you've got to actually customize stuff. So I think it's a really interesting observation. You guys have any thoughts on the results?
Yeah, I mean, it totally lines up that, yeah, be mindful if you start automating things, just too much information gets spit out, and then we're not maybe taking the time to make sure that that content is of value. And that's a super, like, again, that kind of goes back to my notification, you know, fatigue issue, where, you know, you have to be strategic with your notifications. You can't just be notifying people for any good reason, because it's just going to get lost in translation. So I think there's some really good insight from the panel, and it's, you know, people want to use automation, but let's use it right. And let's see where the next year, you know, kind of takes us.
Yeah, to that, I would say that what is your checks and balances after your automation? Is it landing the way you think it is? Are you seeing the behavior modification or culture change that you're looking for? Because sometimes if it's automated, it's forgotten. No one's checking behind it. It's a compliance checkbox, or it's a metric that you say I've done. It's just a number. It's not KPI. There's no OKRs around it to make sure that this is really adding value, as we talked about. So I applaud some of the polls. I agree with a lot of it, but I think that's the pieces. Put that human back in front of it or behind it to make sure that someone's going out and re-polling in person. Is this appropriate? Is this really what we should be doing? Is this landing the way we think it is? Is the onboarding process as clean as it should be with the
Yeah.
awareness? It's automated. Is the offboarding? We didn't even talk about that. How does security awareness land when you offboard an employee? How well is that going? Because can you automate that piece from a security awareness point of view, that we can say that we've properly offboarded a contractor, a supplier, or an employee? That's
Yeah.
the piece of this.
That's typically overlooked, right? I mean, so many times it's like, well, it's Joe's last day tomorrow, and everyone's like, bye, Joe, happy retirement, you know, or best of luck at your new job. But that's it, right? There isn't a security checklist. There isn't a full kind of, you know, download.
And I'm not saying that's awareness's problem, but awareness
Yeah.
should be able to train up that when someone gives notice, there's an awareness package that goes out. Hey, please clean up. Please start your knowledge transfer. Please, it's more of an HR, but security can play into that. Do you have the right Have you given the right rights
Mhm.
to your peers to continue project A or to deliver R&D effort 1, 2, 3? Like
Yeah.
that's where like you and legal and HR can combine as a security awareness manager to make sure that you have a checklist as part of offboarding and the identity lifecycle.
Yeah. And you also made me think of something there as well that we're, when we're talking about automation and kind of like, and AI is moving into this space in a big way, and we're going to automate as much as we can. And so people are going to be wondering, okay, well, is automation going to take my job away, right? Like, is it going to ruin that? And if you start to think about those, well, think about, again, where can we fine tune that automation? Where can the humans still take advantage of it? And that is talking to your users and understanding how your automation is landing and how your program is sitting. Again, an AI chatbot is not going to go and get that information from your staff and know how they actually feel about it and how they're reacting and what the buzz is around the office and what's going on in the Slack channels, are people, positively talking about it and spreading the word. Is your program landing the way you wanted it to? Are you ingesting that information and putting that back into the program? And that's something that only humans can do for the foreseeable future. We can rely on automation, we can lean on automation, and we can use it to get to the finish line, but we still have to give it the guardrails. We still have to craft it, and we still have to rein it in at times. So I think there's automation has a way to. It's never going to replace that human element. I think it's only going to augment and kind of take care of, like I said before, those tasks that you don't need to do, that are redundant, that are repetitive. Let automation do those. But the ones that you can have a difference, that are human centric, that's where you should be putting your efforts in to kind of augment it. Yeah, and I'm just gonna. I mean, we've kind of rolled from the polls into kind of our takeaways as well. So I'm
Yeah,
just going to
let's go into the
share.
insights. Yeah.
Yeah, just share this to see what we're kind of taking away, from this. But how did we help, today with decision makers? What were some of the key insights and thoughts that you guys had around
Yeah,
this?
I really liked the comments from Fleetus. A lot of forward-looking stuff. Just security awareness managers are often caught in the day-to-day things, trying to react to a lot of things. But you need the executives to be thinking ahead, looking at what are the strategic sources of information that could be feeding into our systems. Those RSS feeds and things like that. But I think they also pointing people in the direction of the large language models to get strategic insights were also great comments from Fleetus. And a lot of great practical tips there on the simulations and scheduling of things like subscriptions. I just wanted to sort of highlight, I think there from the polls we saw the immediate value that people are getting from doing automated notifications and reminders just to save themselves some time and make sure there's consistency, building momentum, and scheduling of the content in ways that takes that load off of people. And the context switching costs a lot when you're taking from one task to the other. Now I got to think about my content strategy and then go and do other things. If you can do all that stuff at once and then automate the scheduling of things, I think that seems to have been one of the insights that we really saw here today. So those are the insights, Ryan.
Yeah, Fleetus, yours?
So kind of to where Scott's point, I think the more and more I sit here, for those who know, I'm not a security awareness manager. I come to this call with the security operations side. I just have a very strong passion for human-centric security.
And we appreciate that.
So what I think more and more is you heard Scott say it, and I want security awareness managers to feel comfortable going into other rooms and approaching other security leaders and being comfortable saying, CISO, I need time with you on a regular basis. Hey, CISO, I need a meeting with your directs more regularly. Hey, CISO, I need to report to you at some point. Like you may want to elevate my role to that level where I report directly to you so that I am sitting in your staff meetings, I am part of your discussions, and you have that ability to push that automation because now your peers are in the room with you and you can all work together. I know that's hard in some organizations to say, hey, let's have a chief information security officer, like security awareness officer, but it might be beneficial to have a deputy CISO whose entire focus is security awareness. Like a deputy CISO can be awareness based versus just identity, SecOps, GRC. And orgs don't think that way yet. I don't know if they ever will, but I push that mindset that because you have your chief HR officer who's doing very similar work. They're protecting the company from lawsuits by making sure you do your training. Your security awareness person is doing the same thing, but with a different lens. So they should
and typically a way harder uphill climb. for the same risk and exposure in the legal and everything else world, right?
So it allows
That's the
you
crazy thing.
in the room with the CIO, the CTO, to make sure you can automate your programs and have the buy-in from IT to piggyback, as I alluded to, on their monthly patching or their weekly patching to put your stuff in their package.
Mhm.
You push stuff to them.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, the synopsis of it is get yourself in the room so your automated program can soar, because the more exposure you have and the more support you have, the better it's going to run. And so it's, it's fight for that spot at the table, which is unfortunate that in security awareness you need to do that. Where, like you said, you want to have a fire drill tomorrow. You think anyone would say no to me? But if I said I want to have some awareness training tomorrow because there was a big breach yesterday that could affect our company and shut down operations, it's going to be like a hoe and a hum in a 3 to 6 month process.
Yeah.
And that's
Sometimes.
what,
Yep.
right? And that's what we're up against. And so
Yeah.
it's to your point, it's a great point, Fleetus, that you got to stand up. And if you want to have if you can build the best program in the world, but if you don't have support internally, it's going to be a tough one to roll out.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for on the panel today. It's a huge panel, all two of you. But I appreciate the insights and from the chat as well. I do just want to quickly talk about our sponsor and who brings us this biweekly forum to you, and that's ClickArmor. Normally we just kind of talk about general ClickArmor, but today we've got some specials that we want to bring to your attention, and these really these could be applicable to your organization or an organization that maybe you work with or know. But these are, quick start bundles for kind of smaller to medium business and enterprise. We're talking a lot about kind of getting security awareness in front of people, and this is a very affordable way to do that. That brings a lot of automation, gamified, interactive, and immersive learning along with it. So if you guys are interested, please visit our website, click this QR code here, or just reach out to Scott and I directly. We'd love to review these packages and anything else about ClickArmor that may want to know. And so, with that all being said, I think we're about 10 minutes early today. So that is my second gift to everyone.
Actually, go to the next slide, Ryan, so we can.
Oh, yes, I forgot about the next session.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on that is the next session. So we'll see everyone back in 2 weeks, April 3rd. We're in April already. That is scary. Session 41, what value do red team exercises provide to a security awareness program? So this is going to be a super interesting topic. Get to talk about red teaming, get to introduce red teaming to some people, and see how you can benefit from those exercises. And
yeah,
so
we forgot to update the description in the slide, but that's okay.
Oh yes, so just listen to what I said and ignore the words on the screen. But again, you can register at the QR code. You can also register at the CSAF website, which is linked there below. Link is in the chat. And again, we very much appreciate your time in joining us, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks.